There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean Breeze Books. Welcome back to my channel and another Friday Reads, and here I am indoors in my living room. Not quite ready to show you the living room, but it shouldn't be more than a few more weeks before everything will be set up, the pictures will be hung, and I'll give you a grand tour of the house. For now, here I am with a little bit of show and tell of some things that have come into the house that are of nostalgic, sentimental family value for me, and I'm so glad that I inherited these. The first one is a picture of my great uncle, Reginald Mooney, who my father, Reginald Mooney, was named after. And Reginald Mooney the First died as a boy on Christmas Day, 1903, in Indian Head, which at that time was in Northwest Territories. 2 years later became the province of Saskatchewan, of diphtheria. And he was the oldest boy of a family, and he had maybe 3 younger siblings, but one of them was my grandpa when he died, and then my great-grandparents had many more children. I think they had a total of 8 children, 2 of whom died in infancy. Anyway, their firstborn, Reginald, dying as 8 or 9 years of age, Christmas Day of 1903, and I can only imagine what it was like at that time to have a child with diphtheria and the fear that it would spread to the other children, which it didn't, and I can only imagine. But there was a photograph taken and put in a beautiful frame, and maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years later, another family picture was taken with many more children, and this photograph of the dead oldest child, Reginald, was in the picture, which I think was done back in those days. If somebody had died, they'd bring the photograph into the photography studio and have it as part of the family. And then after my great-grandparents died, my grandfather inherited it, and then my father inherited it, and there's many more details I could get into, but that is enough to say that now I have inherited it. I am the last Mooney, going back, I think, 6 generations, so the line dies here. I am delighted to have this picture. I haven't decided where I'm going to hang it. It's huge, in a gorgeous frame. It's really hard to show you, but you can see it's huge. It's the size of my torso, and it's going to have prided place in my home. Isn't he a cute little boy? So that is a treasure that I shall treasure. And the other one that I'm going to show you today, I have more to show you in the fullness of time, but the other one Mom just found and brought in and gave to me yesterday. And as soon as she showed it to me, I remembered exactly what it is. It's a trivet. It's I think a sheet of copper, but what it is, and I don't know what the right word is, but it is the copper imprint from which my grandparents' wedding invitations were printed. So can you see there, you can see this, and that's in reverse, and that is their wedding invitation from 1922. So this is 103 years old, and I remember my grandma always used it as like a place to put the hot tea kettle down on the table. She used it her whole life at the farm, and it had been tucked away for decades now, but Mom found it, and it's mine, and I shall use it and admire it. And do any of you know if this was a thing? We have never heard of any other family going back to that era where they got the copper thingy that printed the thing, and they kept it as a memento or something. I'm just fascinated by this. It's not a beautiful piece, but it has a lot of a nostalgic value for me. So that's my show and tell for this week. And no big personal news. It's been another good week. Kenji's last day of training is today. He might come home in the middle of while I'm filming this, and that's gone well. Without further ado, a really fascinating mystery guest this week as well. I hope you would expect nothing less. Let's go meet them. And this week's mystery guest is somebody that I've been working with. I'm not sure working is quite the right word, at least from my side, but who has been a great contact for me in the Canadian publishing world, and that is Shauna Deeth, who is the publicity and social media... Sean, why are you tripping over this? Who is the publicity and social media coordinator for the independent press based in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Goose Lane Editions. Shauna, welcome.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
It's so Lovely to meet you. Shauna and I have been in touch. She has hooked me up with several Goose Lane writers that have been wonderful to interview and to read. In particular, I interviewed Nina Burkout about her novel, This Bright Dust, and it is one of the best Western Canadian novels I've ever read. It was just wonderful. She was my mystery guest. I'll put a link to that chat. And also, we did a full length interview after I had read the book, and I'll put a link to that video as well. Shauna, tell us about you and Goose Lane Editions. First of all, have I got the full name of the publisher right?
Yes, Goose Lane Editions.
Great. So tell us about Goose Lane Editions and you.
Yeah, so I've been with Goose Lane Editions for a little over 2 years ago now. It feels both a lot shorter and a lot longer than that. I was very lucky. I was right out of university hire for them. I started as an assistant a couple of years ago and have loved being there. It's a small press. I think there's only 12 of us on staff, but I've never met a more committed crew to books. I love the Goose. I love what we do. And yeah, we work with all kinds of incredible authors. I think my favorite part of my job is it's most of what I get to do is working with some of the most creative and interesting and funny and philosophical people I've ever met. Every season we meet the authors and we sit down and discuss the book and promotions and all that. And I sit there as I feel very strange because I'm a huge fan of some of them. And so I sit the meeting there on a kind of we're an equal level, we're working together, but I'm sitting there trying not to fangirl out a little bit with a lot of them.
Boy, I can relate to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And according to the website, and I'm sure it's true, Goose Lane is the oldest independent publisher in Canada.
Yeah. So we just had our 70th anniversary last year.
Wow.
Yep. We started as Fiddlehead Poetry, I think, or Fiddlehead Books, and we operated out of the university and just did poetry and have come a long way since then. Yeah.
Now, isn't there a still existing Fiddlehead Poetry Prize, or have I got that wrong?
Yeah. So there is the Fiddlehead, which is a literary magazine here in Fredericton. And
So it used to be all
yeah, we
one?
kind of branched, but we still
Okay.
work very closely with them. We're good friends with all the people there. But our poetry, our imprint now is called Ice House.
Okay. Great. And so what kind of books does Goose Lane publish now?
Every season, I think we're adding more. Majority, we do fiction, nonfiction, we do poetry, we have art books that come out all the time that are very exciting. We have trail guides, we have biographies, and I'm very excited. I'm beyond excited because I think this fall or next spring, we have our first graphic novels coming out.
Okay.
And I'm very excited. I've had a chance to flip through some of it. It's gorgeous, it's creative, it's fun. I'm so excited that we're moving into that world. So it's called Nowhere by Jon Claytor. It's very whimsical. It takes place in New Brunswick, in Sackville, and this sort of cube appears, this mysterious cube appears on the outside of town, which is true. It did happen. There was a giant kind of constructed cube that went out outside of town and no one knew what it was for. And so this graphic novel imagining of a sort of fantasy version of that, of what goes on around it. And it's got zombies, it's got monsters, it's got all kinds of fun things. I think in real life, the cube is actually a cranberry storage facility. It's come out, so far less exciting. But yeah, I'm very excited for this graphic novel. Jon Claytor is very fun. He's a fantastic artist.
Great. Tell us about some of the other new or forthcoming books that you know my literary taste quite well. Which ones would you recommend to me and my viewers in particular?
Yeah, you've spoken with Catherine Bush. I think she was our latest fiction, but I know forthcoming, we have two novels, fiction novels I'm very excited for. We have a new David Bergen coming this fall, Days of Feasting and Rejoicing. It is a psychological thriller. It's very exciting. It's fun. It's dark. It's classic Bergen. It's very good. I'm not quite finished it yet, but I've been reading through it and I am very excited for it. This is all from memory. I'm pulling it from my brain now. But we also have a new P.P. Wong, which is called Slice the Water. It's a speculative fiction sort of coming of age. It's fighting tyranny. It's looking at the dangers of technology. It's comparing different oppressive systems of government. So very timely.
Absolutely. I'm interested in Bad Indians Book Club by Patty Krovick.
Yes, that was the next one I was going to bring up.
Great. Yeah, tell us about that one. That's coming out in September.
Yes, I'm personally so very excited for that. Yeah, so that actually started as Patty was approached by a friend who asked her what sort of, if I want to be a good ally, if I want to be a conscious person living in settled Canada, what kind of books should I be reading? And so Patty put together a list of books, and that list of books turned into a book club, which turned into a podcast, which eventually turned into this book. A collection of conversations of people whose identities are on the fringes of the literary canon, and giving those voices the space they deserve and need, and looking into the stories there and how important it is to read diversely. So I'm very excited for that one.
What can you tell us about Patty Krawick?
Other than that, she's an absolute delight. Yeah,
Yeah.
so she's fascinating and smart and very humble, unnecessarily humble. When I was speaking to her about how we wanted to put the book out there, her insistence was that she wanted to facilitate conversations. She didn't want the spotlight. Incredible woman.
I see her bio on your website. She is an Anishinaabe Ukrainian writer, which is an absolutely fascinating combination.
Yes.
Belonging to Laxul First Nation in Treaty 3 territory and lives in Niagara Falls. So even just from the conversation we've had, it's quite obvious to me that Goose Lane does not restrict itself to publishing writers from Atlantic Canada.
No, we've had, I think, every single province is represented. I can't speak to the territories, but yeah, we cross Canada. I think almost exclusively Canadian authors, Canadian and people who's have a complicated relationship with Canadian status, but
Right. And there was one that's in your backlist that interests me, and I think it just might have won an award. Is it about a gay couple in New Brunswick?
Lennon Cub.
Yeah, tell us about that one. That one sounds really interesting too.
Yes, Lennon Cub I'm very excited about. It came out before my time at Goose Lane, but I remember learning about it and diving into it because it was so fascinating. So Len and Cub, they were a gay couple in rural Atlantic Canada. A lot of their relationship and their lives were found in these archive photos stored in the back of an archive somewhere. And so it told this story of, this couple that were not ashamed to be a public couple. Obviously, they had...
What era are we talking about here?
Oh, that's a great question.
I'll look it up right now. In the early 20th century.
Yeah.
Time ago, 100 years ago or so. Wow.
Yeah, and this book has been turned. There was an exhibition about some of the photos a while ago. It's won awards, and I think what I'm very excited for is it has been scooped up by Elliot Page's, I think, Page Boy Productions, to be turned into a show.
Oh, how wonderful. Yeah, I'm really interested in that one. And what can you tell us about the authors, Meredith J. Batt and Dusty Green?
I've met them both, and they're lovely. They're very active in the queer community here in New Brunswick.
I see Meredith's pronouns are they, them. Grew up in Sackville Moncton, and they are an archivist in Frederick.
Yes.
And Dusty uses he, they pronouns, and grew up in Northwest New Brunswick. I think we did work at the archives, but has a different job with the New Brunswick Lung Association. What an interesting pair. Goose Lane is a going concern in Canada. I'm going to share I don't think it's a controversial opinion, but I think it was after reading and loving This Bright Dust by Nina Berkhout so much. I thought, why haven't I heard of this? Why was this book not on the Governor General's list, on the Giller list? What is all this crap that makes all these prize lists when all this wonderful literature by independent presses just gets ignored? It makes me ill. What do you think of my controversial opinion, Shauna?
Ooh, you put me on thin ice here. I'm going to get onto my belly and crawl. No, I think there is a struggle for small independent presses. I work in one, we work with many of them. We're very close with a lot of them to get the attention that the bigger names have, the prestige that sort of the big three presses have. I think a lot of it comes down to manpower and budgeting. I think is sometimes submitting to awards has a cost, or has just some things that I think smaller presses have maybe more trouble accessing.
I think it's a crying shame, and the heat of my opinion is not directed at the small presses. Just to be
I did not think it was.
It's at the mainstream publishing and literati award industrial complex, because I just think that most of what gets on those lists should just be ignored, and people should just read what's coming out of the small presses. That's where I'm at.
I'm fully with you. Let's start promoting that.
Yes. So I'll get off my soapbox, but I'm glad that you didn't bat down my radical.
No, I am all for support indies. I love independent presses. I try to mostly buy from them, although I can't resist a good book when it comes from anywhere. But
I know that my opinion does go too far to the opposite extreme, that you should ignore what's coming out from McClellan and Stewart. But I think that it's still worth considering 9 times out of 10.
I will not argue with that.
So let's switch over and find out a bit more about you personally, because I just found out today that you are a poet.
Yes, yes. I think I've earned that title. I have a piece of paper with a degree on it, whatever that may be worth.
Tell us about
Uh,
that degree.
Yeah, so I got my undergraduate degree in Ontario, which is where I'm originally from, in English, and I had zero idea what I wanted to do next. And one of my professors somehow got it into my head that a poetry MA was possible. And I thought,
Okay.
I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else I want to do besides keep writing and reading. So why not? So I moved out here and I think fell in love with poetry and poets, and yeah, earned my degree in it. Now try my handwriting at it every so often. When I talk about books, I've been reading since this is my bragging point. They gave me a university reading level in the first grade. So I've been reading since I could recognize what words on a page were. And I think now my favorite genre is poetry.
Oh, so let's just quickly circle back. And what's a new or forthcoming work of poetry that you'd like to put in front of my viewers?
Ooh, forthcoming.
Or new, or new.
I actually just finished I am a rereader chronically, and I just finished rereading Joseph Kidney's Devotional Forensics. And so that is a nice house book that I will shamelessly plug. I remember reading the manuscript for the first time when it was in its kind of rawest form and sitting silent in my office and being wowed just at how someone can use language and the way that Joseph thought to use just his turns of phrase are so brilliant that sometimes you just have to sit with them. When he's funny and he's quick, it's just, I'm often in awe a lot with poets, just these ways that they can use new phrases of language that I would have never thought of, and just like really, I don't know, pull at your emotions, can reframe things, can break your heart or make you think about better times. It's just, yeah, he's a brilliant poet. And it was his debut collection.
You just said, to turn the focus back to Shauna, the writer and reader, that you're a perpetual or chronic, I forget the adjective you used, rereader. So what would be the book? Is there a book that you have reread the most? And if so, what is it?
There are two books that I have reread probably a dozen times. Anything by Erin Morgenstern. So she did The Night Circus and
The
The
Night.
Starless Sea. And I remember being young and reading The Night Circus for the first time. And I remember when I finished it of that feeling of hollow, of it's over. It can't be over, because the way that she writes the world and the details that she gives and withholds are, it feels so cheesy to say, but just breathtaking. I'm in awe of the way that she writes and the sensory things that she can, you just feel that you're in it and it feels so magical. And then you're pulled out of it at the end and it doesn't feel right anymore. Yeah. So I probably reread that book every 2 years or so. I just restarted it about a month ago.
And what's the other title by her that you mentioned?
The Starless Sea, and that is another just beautiful book that I only found it a few years ago and I've already read it 4 times.
So was it earlier or later than The Night Circus?
I think it was later. I think it was her
Okay.
second title. Yeah, her biggest crime to me personally is that she's only ever written 2 books.
Okay. Okay,
I
just
take it as a
that.
personal slight.
Great. I think the one that I've reread the most, maybe Wuthering Heights would be come in as a strong second place, but is a lesser known short British novel published in 1979, I think, and it's called
Oh,
A Month in the Country by J.L. Carr.
it
It was
sounds
nominated for the Booker, but it's almost like a cult classic in that people who love it, but there's lots of people that have never heard of it. Yeah, so that's my, I read it every couple of years.
okay, I will go take it out.
You should.
I'll add it to my growing tower of books to read.
This one won't add too much height to it because it's a short book, 200 pages, something like that.
Oh, okay, beautiful.
Great. Oh, where can people find your poetry?
My poetry, I'm on social media. I'm mostly on Instagram at not Shauna. But yeah, I think if you Google my name, my work comes up. Not many people share this name.
Shauna Deeth, everybody. Get busy. I think you have some books to recommend, Shauna. What have you got for us?
I do. So I've just picked up, speaking of small independent presses, I've just picked
Great.
up, it's The Philosophy of Gardening. It's from Invisible Publishing.
Okay.
It is, as the title, it's just essays on gardening and being in the natural world. It's a really good read. I'm only a few in, and I've just picked that up, and I'm very excited to get into it this summer.
And who's the author?
The author, so it's edited by Blanca Stolp.
Okay. Oh, it's an anthology.
Yes, it's an anthology.
Oh, are you a gardener?
I am trying to be. Had a vegetable garden going for a few years. My tomatoes are giving me They're fighting back at the moment, but I am trying. I've been in a war with the neighborhood birds for 3 years. I grow beautiful strawberries and they eat every single one. But that's my gift back to them. I get to listen to them sing and they get to eat my plants, so we'll call it fair. I'll go for another reread that is my summer reread, and it's June, so I have to recommend a book for Pride Month. I'm currently rereading This Is How You Lose the Time War. So it's written by 2 authors, Max Gladstone and Amal El Mottar. It's told in alternating perspectives. There's a time war going on, and it's the 2 sides, 2 agents on either side thwarting each other in this sort of war that goes beyond and through and backwards in time. And they taunt each other by writing these letters that grow increasingly more intimate, but also increasingly more risky. It's brilliant. It's fun. It's different, and it's beautifully written.
I've only heard about her, the female. I didn't realize it was 2 authors to it, but I've been hearing about it for years. I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, I've been hearing about it for ages and finally picked it up and was so glad I did. It's such a fun read. It can be a little difficult to follow, but I don't know. I think once you get into it and just let yourself be taken away in the slipstream that is this book, it's such a fun ride.
I believe what's her name again? Sorry.
Amal?
Yeah, she has a new book out, I believe. I think so. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure I saw recently that she had a second book or a new book out.
Yeah, this is why my TBR is a mile long and absolutely insurmountable.
Mine's on Goodreads, and it's currently sitting at about 3,000. I'm not going to live long enough to read all those books, but there is a list of them available publicly.
I would be in the same boat if I had an actual one. I hear about a book and I add it to the list. Do I ever get to it? I always say collecting books, adding books to my TBR, and reading books are 3 separate hobbies, and I love all 3.
Absolutely. And did you have one more?
Sure, I will recommend then a poetry book, and this time it'll be a Goose Lane book. So I can plug Goose Lane.
Absolutely.
It's when it's out, so I won't keep just talking about books that are coming out soon, but it's Terrarium by Matthew Walsh. Matthew's brilliant. Their books are incredible. They have 2 with us actually, but I'm specifically excited about this one right now because I on Wednesday, because this will be in the past and it comes out, but I am off to Toronto to meet Matthew to go to the Trillium Book Awards. They're shortlisted for the Poetry Award.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so a brilliant poet, and I'm excited to hang out and celebrate with them.
Their poetry explores queer identity and desire against the lonely highs and lows of depression and addiction. Wow.
They're creative. This book, I love it because it's very shamelessly just raw and messy. It doesn't try to pretend to be put together. It's just this thought out and well written, but just this, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm feeling. I'm not going to try to paint it as beautiful. The words are beautiful, but it's brilliant. It's up for that award for, I think, a very good reason. And Matthew's so sweet.
I'm not somebody who naturally reads a lot of poetry. I have to, somebody like my dear friend Lindy has to put a book in front of me and sit down with me until I read at least a couple poems. And then I'll get into the groove of it and enjoy it. So I hereby commit to acquiring a copy of Terrarium and reading it in the foreseeable future.
Oh, wonderful. Let me know what you think.
Shauna, you've been a wonderful guest, and I hope this is the first of many such conversations.
Oh, so do I.
I wish you all the best with your important, incredibly culturally valuable work with Goose Lane. And also, I hope to be reading a book of your poetry one of these days soon, too. It might be the second complete book of poetry I read in the 21st century.
I would be so honored.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sean.
I had fun bonding with Shauna about the fact that mainstream publishing, she didn't quite agree with me that it should be ignored. And of course, I always say things in a grandiose, exaggerated way. But I really think the gold in terms of what's being published these days is not from the big presses. It is from the small presses. And it was fun to talk to her about that. And she's actually got me interested in trying some new poetry. Oh my God. I have not gotten any videos published this week. I'm working on a long one with Tina Cover that I want to get out maybe as early as this weekend. I'm not finished yet. And I have bookmarks for sale. Here they are. Lots of information about how to get them and whatnot in the show notes. I finished one book, and I have 2 that I've read enough of that I'm ready to give you a preliminary reaction to. And I'm going to start 2. Oh my goodness. Out of control. The book I finished is the Irish novel. I think it was published last year, The Coast Road by Alan Murrin. This was a buddy read with Alina, a mega supporter of this channel and top-tier patron, and this was our buddy read for this year. And we recorded a chat about it that will be coming to this channel, but not anytime soon. I have a humongous backlog. I hope to have it up by the end of the year. And we enjoyed this novel. Neither one of us loved it, but we both enjoyed it and would recommend it with some reservations. I don't want to spend too much time giving voice to my reservations because Alina didn't necessarily share them, and I have pored over professional reviews and Goodreads reviews and, to a certain degree, BookTube reviews, and nobody has raised this except me. So I will say it, but I'll move on. I thought, in terms of the character work, there were discontinuities from one chapter to the next, so that some of the major characters were completely different the next time I'd meet them. It wasn't necessarily the very next chapter because we move around in terms of alternating characters, but the next time I'd encounter one of the major characters, she seemed different, and the relationship she had with another major character seemed different to me in a way that people change. And the stability of a personality is always open for debate. But it just bugged me in this one, so I'll leave it at that, because nobody else seems to think that. This is a story that's set in 1994 on the eve of the second and successful referendum, if that's the right way to put that, successful referendum that finally allowed legalized divorce in Ireland in 1995, I believe the referendum was. This is set in 1994. And we focus primarily on two marriages, one where the couple have separated and another where they are just on the rocks. There's another marriage that's also important in the story. I don't think I'm going to give you many more details. One character is a bohemian poet with a drinking problem, and she left her husband, shacked up with an academic. That didn't work out, and she came back to the small town on the coast of Ireland, but didn't move back in with her husband. And she's the object of much gossip and scandal mongering. And she teaches a creative writing class to make ends meet. So I will just say that when she's teaching the creative writing class, she seems wise and soulful and respected by all of the community members, especially one of the other major characters, Izzy. But when she's not on as a teacher, she's a hot mess, and Izzy is scolding her and whatnot, trying to help her in a really judgmental way. And of course, you put on a persona when you go into the classroom. I'm a teacher, I know this, but there was still something about it that just didn't sit right with me. I'm not sure that I want to say a whole lot more about it. It's really well written. I was never bored at any point. I found it a little bit frustrating because of that thing that I've just mentioned. It was a debut novel, so kudos to Alan Murrin for producing such a fine debut novel. I do recommend it. And if you do read it, check out all the glowingly positive reviews. And when you've finished it, come back and let me know if you agree with my thing, because nobody out there seems to share my particular critique of it. It does have the most gorgeous cover of any book published in the last 10 years, I would go so far as to say, and it was not a waste of time. One more comment on it, the audiobook was to die for. So that's what I finished, and I'm going to check in on the two story collections that I have started. I've read two stories in each. The Palestinian story collection by Samira Azzam, Out of Time, translated from the Arabic by Rania Abdelrahman. These are very short stories. So I read two stories and I'm now on page 8. It's also tiny print, but these stories are wonderful. The first one is about a woman who has a newspaper stand on the street in Palestine. I couldn't quite work out what the setting, in terms of, are we talking about 1940 or 1970? What I think it would be earlier rather than later. And it's told in the first person. And I believe that the newspaper stand person is a woman, but I'd have to maybe read the story to be absolutely sure. When it's by a woman, I tend to automatically assume the first person perspective is of a woman. But I've been fooled before. And she has an acquaintance, I'm going to say she for the time being, she has an acquaintance. And he's a bit of a gadabout and a bit of a not scoundrel, but he's a bit of a fake, a bit of a shyster, in that what he does is he comes up to her newspaper stand and he begs her to let him peruse the obituary column, and then he makes notes on who has died and the details of the funeral if they are available. And then he goes, he's like a eulogist, and he just insinuates himself into the funeral service. They seem to be in people's homes. Nobody knows who he is, but he makes as if he's really knew the deceased very well and makes this seemingly eloquent eulogy for which the family is grateful, and they feel obliged to tip him, and that's his gig. I won't tell you how it ends, but that one was really interesting. That was called Tears from a Glass Eye. The second story is No Harm Intended, and this was delightful. I'm tempted to read it to you, but I probably could get into trouble for copyright, so I won't do that, but I really press you to go read these stories based on the first two. No Harm Intended. This is in the first person plural, we, and this family runs a confectionery store. And the father tells his probably daughters, I don't imagine, maybe it's sons too, involved in running the confectionery, to be nice and give free samples, and you get more customers with honey than with, what's the other one, vinegar or something. And there's one old guy who seems down on his luck, who comes in quite regularly and waits for free samples, stands there sucking on these hard candies and criticizing them profusely. The rest of his body language and the way his eyes are, he seems to be loving the candy, but it criticizes it and then walks out, and he has never in all the years he's been doing this bought anything. And that story ends in a really fascinating way. So this one is a big hit so far. Let me just correct what I said. There's no chance that any of these stories are set in 1970 because the author, Samira Azzam, died quite young, age 39, just before her 40th birthday in August 1967. So they might be set close to that time or not, I'm not sure. And I would say even more so, I am wowed by the first two stories in Heartlamp, selected stories by Banu Mushtaq, translated from the Canada by Deepa Basti. Oh my God. Mushtaq is a writer, activist, and lawyer from Karnataka. And she and the translator of this book won the International Booker Prize in 2025. And based on the first two stories, I can see why. So the first one is Stone Slabs for Shaista Mahal. And it is about a married couple being observed by another married couple. So the narrator is the wife of the other married couple. And these are new acquaintances, but there's an intimacy between them from the get-go. But it seems that they've just met, that they just really click. Shaista is the wife, and Iftikhar is the husband that are being observed by the others. So I'm going to focus on those characters in what I say about the story. Iftikhar is a very loving person in the way he's always praising his wife, and just he can't stop rhapsodizing about how much he loves his wife. He says to her in front of this other couple, "If I were an emperor, I would have built a palace to put even the Taj Mahal to shame and call it Shaista Mahal." And then the observing wife takes him to task in a playful way. So that was after she died. That's not a really good compliment to give to your wife. It's more about her death than her life. And that's where the title comes. Stone Slabs for Shaista Mahal. And Shaista is pregnant with, I think, third or fourth child. And Iftikhar doesn't want their adolescent daughter to continue being educated, because what's the need in that? She's just going to get married in the next 10 minutes. So there's all kind of gender stuff going on there. Just fascinating. And then the second one, which I just read. I'm doing this, the audio is wonderful. I'm doing it with the book on my lap while listening, what I call an audio text combo, and it's called Fire Rain. And this one is about a mutawali, and I assumed it meant like that as another way of referring to an imam, but that is not right. A mutawali is the trustee of a religious building or that property that's for religious purposes, and the mutawali is the powerful guy who is managing and entrusted to take care of it. I'm still thinking more imam as well, because people are always consulting him about their personal problems and asking for money, so I guess that would maybe make sense. I want to do more research to understand the context of this story, probably open up more ways to read it, more ways to understand it. But we see the members of the community lining up to ask him for money. So I guess he has some discretion to disperse money out of this endowment, the funds that he's entrusted to. That part is a bit mysterious, but it opens more personally with his sister, his married sister, coming to claim her share of her father's estate after the father had been dead for years, and she comes and asks for her share. And he is so shocked by this request that he is just stands there or sits there in stunned silence. But it's her legal right, and she does say, if you're not going to give it to me, I will go to the courts. And he is just struck dumb with indignation. And his wife secretly thinks that he should do the fair and honorable thing. And there's a sick son lying on the floor, which there not much attention is being paid to him by anybody in the story or by the reader, because there's all this other stuff going on. And then the next day, we see this long lineup of people asking him for money. I'm not going to say any more about it, but he uses the news about a Muslim corpse being buried in the wrong cemetery to distract everybody and achieve his own ends. But there is a personal cost to that at the end of the story. Absolutely gripping. I loved it. I can't wait to continue with Heartlamp. Okay, more quickly, I am going to start 2 books. The other short story collection on my Women in Translation Month TBR is River of Fire and Other Stories by Jung-hee, translated from the Korean by Bruce and Juchan Fulton, so I'm going to get started on that. And I'm about to embark upon another buddy read, a slow buddy read over many weeks of this short story collection, Cat Brushing by Jane Campbell. And I think many of you will be familiar with the title story because wasn't it published in the New Yorker, and it's about the sexuality of an 80-year-old woman. And I think all of the stories are focused on elderly. The Batt says this collection explores the sensual worlds of 13 older women. Yes, so I am here for that. This short story collection came up in my mystery guest chat with Vesna Main, and she told me a lot about it that I didn't know. And this is going to be a buddy read with Louise, who's been a long-time viewer of this channel and patron, and we're going to get started a story a week this coming week. I can't wait. All right, that's what I've got for now. Thanks for watching.